What is going on to all my boys fans out there, and welcome back to my channel, Movie Files. Elliot back again, breaking down this second episode of the return of season 3 of The Boys, which was titled The Only Man in the Sky, an episode in which tackles the theme, can the broken be fixed? We also see another side of Stan, of him and his home life. And speaking of home, Homelander lets everyone know who the real hero is. We'll be discussing that and so much more in today's breakdown spoiler review. Before we get into the discussion, make sure you're checking me out on all my other social media accounts. If you're new to the channel and love early movie reviews, TV breakdowns, and live streams, well, come and join the community by subscribing and hitting that notification bell. If you all enjoyed this spoiler breakdown of episode 2 of season 3 of The Boys, make sure you're liking and sharing this review, but more importantly, sharing your pros and cons, thoughts and theories, and everything in the comments below. This episode was great. It was entertaining, it was funny, it was diabolical as always, and it was very dark. We got a lot to break down, full spoilers ahead, as we open episode 2 with the return of Billy Zane, who is playing the leader of the Church of the Collective in the VTV exclusive new original film by the name of Not Without My Dolphin, starring the Deep. Yeah, I'm going to need to see that film. I'm going to need them to release that and show us what that film actually entails as he's running away from the Collective. And oh my goodness, I love when the Deep is in these episodes. He throws in the comedic relief of the show. But let me know what you all watched that film. But getting back into it, we also get a shot of Homelander, who will be streaming his birthday party live, as we cut between him talking to Billy, who's deciding if he should take the V-24. Now, we also see him having a brief moment, which I assume that young man was probably his dead brother, Lenny, which I'm really kind of excited to see what happened exactly with that relationship, but we also ultimately see that this was a dream. But again, he's good to push the question. Again, the theme that I really enjoyed that was tackled in this episode was this whole idea: if you're broken, can you be fixed? And we see many examples of that in this episode, this being one of them. He is woken up by a call from Ryan, who is checking in on him and offering him some advice, and actually refers to the homemade video, which I'm not going to lie, that moment was emotional when we actually see the video of Ryan and the movie he made for his mom, Becca, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But we see that Billy, again, he's on edge, he's irritated, but he's calmed down. He's a little short with Ryan, but he remembers, I have to protect you. That's the promise that I left to Becca. And again, I think this episode really does show with him, and we'll talk about him taking the V-24, I think there will be side effects in regards to V-24 really enhancing some of your more darker elements and the rage that's inside of Billy. And I think this whole promise to Ryan and protection will be put to question in this season. More to discuss on that a little bit later. But getting back into Homelander's special day, as he tells Stormfront, who is not responding to him, who appears, and again, it's his birthday, he wants to celebrate. She seems to be ignoring him, but she is very aware of the situation. And we'll talk about, did she really kill herself? Did she really bite her tongue? Or is this some type of setup from Stan and Vought? We'll get to that discussion a little bit later. We actually get the Red River reveal, which we see a conversation between Annie and Huey discussing that this is a group home owned by Vought, which again, it could be a front. It could, it seems to be a group home, but I think there's something more involved with Red River, and hopefully we get a little bit more information on that. But as they're having this conversation, Huey doesn't want to tell anyone about what he learned about Nadia, and he believes that him and Starlight can handle this on his own. Now, I think it's important to note that this is the second time in back-to-back episodes when he's struggling with the jelly jar. He has that conversation a little bit later. I think his whole thing of being helpless and not being able to help people is definitely something that's going to put a strain not only on him, but maybe in this relationship, which based on episode 1, it seems to be pretty strong and stable. But I think those questions, again, broken, can they be fixed? Can he believe that he can help people out, that he can make a change? Again, that theme is very prominent and very strong and handled pretty well within this episode. But as we get back into it all, I think his jealousy will be another thing that comes to question involving Supersonic, which, speaking of, we cut to Supersonic talking to Annie, but also we see Homelander gets in the way and he talks about the revisions, and he has a surprise for people later in this birthday bash, which I can't wait to talk about about that scene. But pop-up visit from Billy, as we see Billy pays a visit to MM about the super weapon that took out Soldier Boy. But there is definitely some history there between Soldier Boy and MM, which we'll kind of talk about here in a second. And he mentions that his father was obsessed with Soldier Boy, but in this obsession, he ignored his family. And MM doesn't want to be like his father. And we can definitely see, again, that he has a connection with Soldier Boy, which they allude to in these following scenes here, as we see MM has been collecting different articles about Soldier Boy. And as you can see on the articles, it mentions that he was trying to stop these thieves, but unfortunately a family was caught in the crossfire. And I think it's, I don't want to say safe to assume, but we know that his father lived. He had a really good relationship with his father, as he mentions in season 1 and more so in season 2, that he was a lawyer trying to stop the soups, trying to shut down Vought. Now, my working theory right now is that his father wasn't killed. He had a heart attack and, was just working to unravel all the dark secrets that Vought hides. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's revealed that that family that was involved in the crossfire was probably MM's family, and maybe his mom was killed in the crossfire, because we don't hear him talk about his mom, and we obviously going to probably learn more about what actually happened. I think that's probably something that's going to be revealed. I could be completely wrong, but let me know what you all think this connection is with MM and Soldier Boy and the family that was caught in the crossfires. Let's talk about that in the comments. But as we get into it here, we see that work first, then comes the pleasure, as Kimiko and Frenchie are at Vought Land doing their research on Soldier Boy. And this is where we get this film here of all the stuff he did in the past, in the 40s and stuff like that. Very very similar to Captain America, the First Avenger, as we actually cut into the scene where we officially meet Laurie Holden, who's going to be playing Crimson. She was the one true love of Soldier Boy, as we see that they manage to go to her back room and they, for a brief moment, hold her down for a little bit, but she does manage to escape. And this is where the madness pursues in this episode. As she's running out to Vought Land, she kills one of the people dressed up as Homelander, as the blood and guts kind of shoot everywhere again. And while this is happening, going back to can the broken be fixing, we see that Kimiko sees a brother and a sister, and she kind of feels as though their childhood would no longer be the same. And we'll talk about the kind of moment that she has with Frenchie a little bit later. But it's kind of cool to see Laurie officially in the show, because I'm a big fan of hers. I know she's been in countless movies and shows. I know her from Walking Dead, and I'm really excited to kind of not only learn more about this Crimson character, but I think Laurie's a great actress, so I'm really excited to see her be a new addition to this cast. Let me know your thoughts on her addition and what you hope to get from the character in this new season. As we cut back into Huey, as he is now tasked to go on this solo mission. But while this is going on, we cut back to what's going on with Homelander, as he gives the word to Starlight that she will be tasked with singing happy birthday at his birthday bash. And it's in this moment that Stan kind of steps in and says no, she's not going to do what she doesn't want to do. And I'm just so curious, and I'm so excited to see this dynamic between Homelander and Stan, and just how much longer will Homelander continue to kind of be belittled by Stan, especially with him. At least we think that Stan is a human. Who knows what kind of secrets he has? He might be a soup himself. But I think by the end of this episode, the orders being given to Homelander by Stan, the days are being numbered, because it looks like Homelander is finally going to be taking lead in his own life and how he wants to present himself to people. But getting back into it all here, we see A-Train has a new rebranding for himself, and I thought this moment here, and it's going to be really interesting to see him kind of shape himself in this season. But going back to the rebranding, some very interesting stuff here that A-Train wants to implement to his kind of public image, as he has a new doc in mind by the name of A-Train Goes to Africa, which is essentially his journey back to his roots and his way into leading to the 7. But no, that's not it. He has a video game in the works, and this video game is named The Middle Passage, which is a game about the slave trade. Okay, all right, A-Train, we see what we're getting in here, as he's talking with the black PR. He's like, dude, you're not channeling your blackness, you're kind of putting on this front. So again, I'm very intrigued, because they have been kind of, A-Train has been a character that they've kind of tackle a little bit of racism, like even though it's very similar to how, black athletes, black celebrities, like they are that athlete on the court when they have their jersey on, they're their actor you see in the film, but when they're not acting or not playing their sporting event, whether it's football, basketball, baseball, you name it, they're still a black person. When people kind of see them in that light, as we saw that last season when he was recovering from breaking his leg, the security guard was very, being very discriminatory towards him and giving him racism. So I'm really intrigued to see how they handle that plot, and if they continue to kind of string that along in regards to him not only trying to embrace himself back into Seven, but also kind of channeling what makes him much different than the Seven, which is right now the only black person in the Seven, which Black Noir, I think I'm going to talk about him a little bit later, but I'm really intrigued to see what they do with A-Train this season. But we go to visit the Red River, which seems to be a place, again, like I mentioned, that parents send their children to that have superpowers that they want to put them up for adoption. Now, I thought it was really interesting that they kind of added this to the show, because again, what I looked up from Red River from the comics, it's much different. Again, it's not explicitly said what it is, but it seems to be some type of undercover black ops situation, but now they're using it in a different vein. But I don't know if you all, let me know in the comments, did you watch the show The Boys Presents Diabolical? Because if you did, and I think it was, I didn't watch the entire series, but I watched the first 3 episodes, and in episode 2, it was essentially kind of showing what we're seeing in this episode, which was a facility that had a bunch of soups that were given away as children because their parents did not want them. They couldn't control their power, so they gave them to this group, and they never got adopted. So I wonder if that's some type of connection from that episode and now making its way, like if that was like a prelude for the audience to kind of test the market, test this idea, and implement it into the live action show. I think there's some connective tissues there. But again, that's kind of the essential, what we're thinking that the Red River is so far, is a place for soups to get adopted, which leads us into what Huey's doing here, as one of the kids kind of points out that he is someone that's famous and is dating Starlight, and he has to switch the narrative, and he makes it seem as though he's there to get some information about adopting a soup, which I think is something to look forward to. Maybe him and Annie being parents, we'll see where that goes. But more importantly, he puts the thumb drive in the computer and he takes all the information, which the information that he finds is very critical, because we see the scene here in the video clip is actually a young Nadia being adopted by no other than Stan Edgar as her. He doesn't say, "I'm going to be your father," but he tells her he's going to protect her, which leads perfectly into this next scene here, which is shining a light on Stan's home life. More particularly, we see a different side of Stan. We see his more vulnerable side. We see him being a dad, reading to his daughter this book, but also having this conversation with his older daughter, who he promised to take care of, Nadia. So very, very interesting. I think it is so great that we might be able to explore more of this other side of Stan, see that he might have been doing this for years. And I have a theory about maybe Stan doing this to another person in this show who goes by the name of Black Noir. We'll talk about that a little bit later when I share my theories. But let me know if you all are excited to learn more about Stan and see this more vulnerable side, seeing his home life. I wonder who his wife is, how many other kids he has done this with. Very, very great reveal there. But getting to meet a character from the Payback by the name of Gunpowder. He's a retired superhero who can almost kind of like has similarities to Peacemaker, but he can summon up, because Peacemaker can't summon weapons, but he's a master with weaponry, as well as like a Deadshot, but he can actually like manifest weapons. So very interesting, very timely too in regards to like gun control and stuff like that. It's always interesting how the boys throws in social commentary of what stuff that's going on in the real world. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But as we meet him, we see Billy does what Billy does best, which he goes and talks to him, and he kind of pokes at him and makes fun of him being a sidekick soldier boy. He tries to get information from him. He ultimately we cut to like a shootout between the two, and we see Gunpowder does like a very Wanted. I don't know if you all remember the film Wanted with James McAvoy and Angelina Jolie, but he kind of like warps the bullet, and it kind of cuts Billy, but also it shoots Billy. He gets shot in the leg, and he escapes. But I think it was important to note that Billy, at that point, he didn't take the V24. He needed something to kind of push him to ultimately do this, which, going back to what I mentioned earlier with the video that Ryan made for him, and really the kind of really good emotional beat in this episode, we actually see him play that video with seeing Ryan talking to his mom. And again, I think that was the moment where he kind of said, I have to do what's needed. And we'll get back to that scene a little bit later. But This is a pretty big moment here and a very dark moment as we see Homelander gets the breaking news about his girlfriend as he's attempting to save this girl by the name of Chelsea, who is on the ledge and wants to take her own life. And we see as he's giving this speech, the news comes up. There's some leaked footage that Stormfront has taken her own life by, as Ashley brings up, does the $1 million baby routine and bites her own tongue in killing herself. Now, is this a cover-up? Is she still alive? Did she really take her life? I think she did, and I think this is the last that we're going to get Stormfront, but I wouldn't put it past Stan Edgar. He found that she was alive. Well, they knew that she was alive, and they knew where she was, so it wasn't a big secret in that case. She was in the tower. They have cameras everywhere, so is she off the table? Did she take her life? Let's see what happens. Let me know your thoughts on that. But getting back into the darkest moment of this episode, Chelsea at this point, as he's kind of upset, he's spilling his beans and spilling his heart out about like kind of the gods, how someone that powerful lost their life and he's trying to save someone that wants to take their life, a regular human being. We see Chelsea's like, you know what, I changed my mind. I no longer want to take my life. And he just kind of, again, the broken being fixed in his eyes, he forces her to do what she was wanting to do, which is take her life. And she is, they don't show that if he pushed her, but I think by him like threatening her, like, I'm going to push you if you don't throw yourself off the ledge, we ultimately see that she lands on the ground. Ooh, that is some dark, dark stuff. And Homelander at this point, again, it's just little by little being embarrassed by Stan, being, this breaking news. And this is all taking place on his very special day, or at least the day that was made up that it was his birthday. He's going to make his stand and make his announcement of who he really is a little bit later. But let me know what you all thought of that scene. And again, is Stormfront, is she off the table, or is this all a part of a setup? Let's talk about that in the comments. But let's get back into I'm Sorry. As we get a moment here with MM, who's at his breaking point in front of his daughter. He breaks down. And it's at this moment that I think that to him, once he had this conversation with Billy about Soldier Boy, it brings up all those traumas. It brings up all those emotions. And right now, he just wants that closure, and he can't have this regular life. The broken can't be fixed because he has to figure out what happened with Soldier Boy, and it's kind of eating at him, right? Because we see him taking his daughter back home and having the conversation with his ex, and she pretty much tells him, you need to get this closure. You need to do you need to do what you're best at, which is getting these answers, getting the closure that you need. So I think it's safe to say the band will be surely getting back together soon. But let me know what you all thought about MM. And again, I'm thinking that his mom was probably killed in the crossfire. It could be something else entirely different, but let me know what you all think about MM getting back into the boys. Let's talk about that in the comment section. But you see Victoria, or should I say Nadia, confronting Huey about Tony coming to the office, but she is cut off because Starlight saves him, and we see Starlight gets the information that he found about what she actually did and how Stan has done this in the past, but also she gets the news that they might be parents sometime soon, that he signed them up for adoption, which I don't know if they're going to continue that plot or if we will see by the end of the season they're going to end up being parents of a Soup. That would be pretty interesting dynamic. I don't know if that's something in the comics. Even if it isn't, or if it is, I would love to see that being a plot in this show. But as we get back into it all here, going back to the big theme, and this is where I think it was highlighted really beautifully, broken and never can be fixed. As Kimiko is talking to Frenchie about what happened at the park and how she connects that to what's going on with her childhood and messing up those kids that saw the person being exploded right in front of them. And then I love how they connect that narrative to going back to Billy. As I mentioned, he's watching the clip that was made by Ryan referring to seeing, Becca and her being a great mom and the message she left for him, and tying all this stuff. We're seeing all these broken people. All of our characters are slightly broken. Huey, Frenchie, Kimiko, Homelander. I mean, everyone's broken on this show, right? So I love how they're connecting all these narrative tissue, and this moment here is leading to, okay, I need to fix myself, and we're seeing multiple examples of that. And more importantly, we're seeing Billy, he's deciding to take that extra step. He's deciding, okay, I need to fix myself. I need to level the playing field. this was the moment that led him to taking the V-24, which let's talk about this scene here. We ultimately see Billy pays a visit again to Gunpowder as he beats the truth out of him about 1984, as he reveals to him that he doesn't know what happened to Soldier Boy, but you can ask the case leader, who was the one and only CIA leader. Mallory was there. So it's going to be interesting to see how Billy's going to be able to get this information out of Mallory. But let's not fast forward to what happened in this scene as he's beating his face in, and he ultimately rages out, very Superman, Man of Steel. He laser beams and slices his face in half, slices the car in half, and just raging out. Which, speaking of raging out, I wonder if this V-24, Compound V, if this is one of the side effects of the 24-hour temporary powers, if it kind of really enhances the darker sides of you, enhances your rage and your fury and your hatred. I think that is something to see, and I wonder if that's going to ultimately overtake Billy, and really he's going to be like, another side effect is you're going to want to always be on it. You're going to always want to have this in your system for you can feel powerful. You can feel like you're not broken. So very intrigued to see what this is going to mean moving forward. But let's wrap up the episode as we go to Homelander's birthday. A-Train again channeling his inner blackness with his new wardrobe, introducing Starlight and Homelander, as we see Starlight tells everyone about Starlight House, a home for the homeless and the at-risk youth. And as we see someone yelling out in the crowd what happened to Stormfront earlier in the episode, as we see Starlight attempts to save the moment and tell everyone in the crowd that, Homelander's going to donate $10 million to the cause, and this is his moment to shine. He says, nope, this is not the truth. I'm going to tell you the truth, as he goes on and just tells everyone that he's better. He's done with this. He tells them that he's tired of being controlled, that everyone else is controlled. Notice who kind of stands up in their seat. I talked about in episode 1, Todd. Is he a good guy, bad guy? He's seeming to take a lot of liking to what Homelander is saying to everyone, as we see Homelander looks at the camera and tells everyone that he is the real hero in the episode. What an interesting way, and just kind of moving forward. Will this add more fuel to the fire of people hating Homelander, or will it be people gathering up to him? And I think it's going to be kind of a 50-50. People will be rallying with him, and then it's going to kind of split people that don't want to be on his side, seeing kind of this internal infliction amongst the world in America and how they view superheroes. I thought that moment was fantastic, but also this episode posed some other questions. One being, will Annie and Huey actually adopt this child? Will we also learn about Stan? Now, going back to my Red River kind of theory that I have right now, if you all remember when Homelander was fighting Starlight and Maeve came in and saved her and put the almond joy in his mouth, and they lifted up his mask, I know he was burnt in season 2 when they blew up the house and all that different stuff, and he actually got exploded in episode 1 in the premiere episode of season 2. So that can explain some of the darkness on his skin. But if you all don't know, the actor that plays Black Noir isn't a black individual; he's a black actor. And going to this whole, like, being a black actor, being a black individual, being a black character, I wouldn't be surprised. And again, if you all know the comics, Black Noir is a completely different reveal. He's, I don't want to. You probably know who Black Noir is if you've read the comics. I don't want to give it away here, but I think the remix on this reveal, I wouldn't be surprised if we learned that Black Noir was actually one of those kids in the Red River, adopted by Stan Edgar. He, raised him. As we know, they seem to have some pretty good connection when we saw him calling him on his chest, and he seems like he is, one of his top undercover, agents. So I don't know. I think that would be a pretty cool reveal, because I'll just say there is some cloning that goes on in the comics, and we'll see how that plays out with Black Noir and Edgar maybe being his adoptive dad. Let me know your thoughts on that. And last but not least, will this new V-24 have Billy be more in control or less in control, and him going down this path of rage and becoming the people he wants to stop, which is a soup? So, and will he give this to Frenchie, Huey? I can't wait to find out. I am going to be watching episode 3, shooting my review shortly, and giving you all my thoughts on the 3rd episode. And I'm loving this show so far. I'm loving this new season, and I really enjoyed this 2nd episode. So again, just a friendly reminder, if you haven't already, I reviewed episode 1. You can check out that video, and then shortly after this, you can check out my review of episode 3, and every week we'll be breaking down these episodes. So let me know your thoughts in the comments, pros, cons, thoughts, and theories, all that stuff in the comments section. As we wrap up the video, I thank you all for supporting the video. Make sure before you leave to like, share, leave your thoughts in the comment section, and of course, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. As you see on the screen now, come and join the community. Check out my episode 1 review, check out my episode 3 review, and we'll catch you all on the next breakdown.